Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with, I believe, the 47th episode of the Cultist Simulator Priest Legacy DLC, and we're playing as Harold Davidson. So it's been a bit of a funny week for me as I've been recording these, but I want to talk a little bit about the state of play, particularly because I sort of grabbed a Lockscar of opportunity, and that's left me with some shortfalls in terms of my overall status. And some of this stuff will resolve at the time. I need to find the division between things I want to do in terms of preparation and things I want to do as, part of the gameplay, because I think that is generally the tendency that people tend to prefer seeing the game played as opposed to everything just being theorized. But it's sometimes helpful to take a minute to just review where you are, particularly if you're someone who plays this game and you tend to find that you are still falling to something like fascination or starvation. These are taking the time to sort of smell the roses and think about what your next couple of turns are going to be can sometimes mean that difference between losing a run and having to start over and being able to sort of get past a bit of a thorny patch. So right now we have 1 health. And this is because there was a period actually where we had no health on the table, and a season of sickness could have potentially ended the run for us. Now, I wasn't too worried about it because we were going to be healing up in terms of the dream slot. But the fact of the matter is that we've now got 4 lock scars. So we've got the heart, the moth, the lantern, the edge, and the forge. And we've got 1 health. Now, of course, we know we've got 7 lock scars that we need to achieve. So there's a grail, a knock, and a winter. It's actually kind of funny that the 3 leftmost ones are the ones that are remaining. That wasn't intended that way. And of course, we also know that in order to be able to achieve all of this, we need a sickness for winter, which is going to imply that we don't just need the health for the lock scar, we actually need the health for the sickness. But we're also kind of on our path to getting that. So of course, if you aren't familiar with this, we have done this trick before. We have been able to take decrepitude and heal that back into health. So some wounds never quite heal. Untreated injuries and hunger become decrepitude, which does not return to health. Decrepitude remains until you die. Now, in this case here, there are rituals that will allow you to restore your health. You can turn your decrepitude into health. And of course, I will make it more explicit, but if you've been watching carefully, you've noticed that we've actually been getting some other decrepitude from elsewhere, and this has actually resulted in what the end result is going to be, is that even though we have got 5 lock scars, we'll actually have 3 health once we restore this decrepitude. And so the question of, well, how do you get 7 lock scars? Once we restore this decrepitude, we now at least have the raw material in order to be able to accomplish that. And again, I'll make it explicit once we kind of get through all of it. But I'm starting to sort of peel away the layers in terms of how we achieved that. Now, as far as some of the things that are more time sensitive for us, we managed to get through the dread and the fascination more or less intact. There was 1 extra fascination that popped up from the painting. That was a risk that we ran, but I was okay with it because it meant getting rid of the restlessness. Generally, I tend to find it's easier to deal with despair in isolation or fascination in isolation. And there might have been an argument, if you did some other kind of a painting, your contentment would have gotten rid of the despair. But then again, we still needed to do a painting and I wanted to get rid of the staleness. So this despair is going to go away on its own. That'll give me the fleeting reminiscence. And at that point, I just need to find a way of getting rid of the fascination, either through a dread or another fleeting reminiscence, depending on what happens. We also have an expiring raw profit, so that's going to go away in about 14 seconds. We could also potentially lose it to the mission that it's currently on. But with that in mind, I think I can still get by using the work slot. Yeah, I wanted to do a summoning with the... I did want to do a summoning with the raw prophet, but I'm actually going to do a ritual instead. So let's try and get some of that decrepitude. Oh, hang on. No, I shouldn't do that right now because that's going to get me a fascination and that will be bad. So let's actually go back to the parish and do a sermon. We'll do a sermon on the Formula Vigilant. Oh, no, I can't do that because I don't have a passion. So we'll do a lantern sermon instead. I'll speak to their souls, and if I speak with precision, their souls may answer me. Oh, and I should also, we're going to read the Known Unknown Tantra. Carlos Garcia Sari, the ecstatic mystic of the Pyrenees, was known to recite this in 3 languages, though he had never visited the subcontinent. The Known Unknown Tantra describes a journey to the white door of the Mansis, beyond which speech ceases. It describes a mantra which can be used at the right place and time to achieve that door. So this is, I mean, we know the white door. One of the tricky things here is that the only way you can know of the existence of the white door is to have visited the Mansis before, and sometimes maybe you're not paying attention to those details. We'll have the Mansis come up so I can point that out specifically. But if you haven't recognized the white door might be the next entry on your path, then this is definitely a bit of text that can sort of fly under the radar. But actually, this is the game giving you something a little bit like a tutorial in this case. It's telling you how you can get to the white door. This will buy their loyalty for now. So we'll keep the bomb maker at bay, and we will just send the percussagant out. This is mostly to preserve the percussagant, although it is kind of nice to have a few bodies to send out to the... send out to the spider door. Well, we're not sending them to the spider door. I'm going to the spider door. I'm using them to get to the spider door. Or spider's door, I suppose. I await word. Actually, this timing may not work so well for me. My minion is returned. The evidence has been destroyed. I am a little safer. And I might have found somewhere unusual. Yeah, so we're actually 0.3 seconds off on the task. Okay, so we've got a season of ambitions coming up. I do actually want to get some work done here. So, for starters, let's go... Saliba, we're going to pay for your healing. Raw profit, I'm going to just keep inside Search the City for a little while. Alright, that's enough. Send the percussagant out. So yeah, the trick to understanding the white door would be to say, once you've gone into the... This is a reference to what I was talking about before, but it's the fact that you've wound up in the wood through your first dream, and you're given this choice of the well and the Temple of the Wheel. And if you look at the map, you will realize that, you know, compared to the wood, you have the white door, the spider door, the stag door, the peacock door. Now, the tricuspid gate, also previously known as the triscupid gate in a very early version of the game. Actually, that particular typo lasted quite a while. But in this particular case here, so the kind of the inference you need to draw would be that these entryway, with the exception of this particular one, that these might be other locations that you can eventually visit. So you can say, okay, so there's a place kind of like the wood, which is higher up, and it will give me access to the Lodge of the Sage Knight or the Orchard of Lights. Or at the very least, you just need to recognize that the white door is something that you can in fact visit. Now, you know, is that something that you can, you know, is it reasonable to assume that the player is going to pick up on that? I don't know. I mean, I think there are people who've been able to get to the white door without necessarily reading the Known Unknown Tantra, but that is something that will sort of, you know, assuming that you can understand that there's more than one Mansis location to visit, that would be enough to say, okay, so I'm going to pay attention to this text because it's going to show me a piece of lore that I can use. Now, I have been trying to understand the spider door a little bit better. So the last time that we visited and there was Grail influence, which in this case is the imperative of appetite, there was a Forge influence in the Mallory and Winter influence in the Chamber of Ways. Now, neither of these are really necessary for me, but at the very least I can ignore the Forge. So we'll see whether or not it turns out that way. Okay, so this one, we did wind up with Lantern in this case. But we do also have Forge for the Mallory. So there's a couple ways that the forge might be useful for me, but we'll see. Again, we've got a lot of demands on our attention right now, so... And incandescence, change follows fire, level 15. Last night in the Mantis, I visited the Mallory, from whose engines and avenues one does not emerge unchanged. I watched the process of sunset, and I entered the amber joy, and the white joy, and the blue joy, and I was subjected to the enlightenments of calcination, and the forge of days touched me with her burnished fingers. And I rise from my bed with the utter knowledge that all nights, all nights, all nights must end. And we'll head straight back to the spider's door. It's kind of interesting. It's called the spider's door on the card, but it's called the spider door on the map. That may just be because there were different, kind of different iterations over development, or it could be there's a meaning there that I'm not picking up on. Gotta be quick on the pause this time. The glory demands truth. When we are clad in truth, it shall not burn us. I do actually like the fact that there are similar... Oh, there's actually other text here as well. Mercy and truth preserve the king, but the light only truth preserveth. I actually really like the fact that you can sort of see some parallels to the Moth sermon. I don't do Lantern that much because it takes longer, but that's a neat little callback. Okay, so I definitely need to get the raw profit. So we are going to grab our... I do have the subtle fracture still, so we'll use the sunset right. And this just means that if we wind up having a rebellious summoning, I can still use the raw profit for another summoning. So in this case, summon one of the more bewildering creatures of the Red Grail. Grail for the raw profit source, and a little moth for its chaos addiction. And sure, we will hire the professional muscle. Finally, the light of the lantern can only ever reveal the space between the forest shadows. So the unmerciful mantra, which again, I mean, lantern I think will... I'm pretty sure lantern and knock can take you through all of them. I might need to double check that, because I really don't commit a lot of this stuff to memory. I usually just either go by impressions, or I remember it at the time, or the game will remind me. I mean, you can also just iterate over all the different lore, but that's not as exciting. But yeah, in this case here, this would be potentially one of the ways that you would find out how to go to the white door. Okay, is there anything I want to do with the study verb right now? I do potentially want the dread. This is actually going to be kind of helpful for me, because if we wind up getting dread from the ivory book, then I can ignore potential dread from the restlessness. And if we don't get dread, then we might want to let that restlessness or the fervor decay. So, and I'll have to figure out which one I want to do later. So for the time being, let's translate the Ivory Book. A manual of the Order Limea, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Limea in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. And we will translate that from Fusini. Okay, so there's no notoriety. There'll probably be some evidence that we need the raw profit to get rid of once it's summoned. But we have a few seconds to go. So if there's no trouble with the summoning, 45 seconds. And if there is trouble with the summoning, it's going to be about 2 minutes before we have somebody who can deal with the evidence. But because it's tentative evidence and not damning evidence, it's not as big of a deal. Okay, Season of Sickness, so probably just as well that Saliba is getting healed now. The congregation has donated generously, and they haven't limited those donations to the collection plate. So Forge is going away, sadly, but I gotta work with what I've been given. Watchman, who is the door in the eye, waits in my dreams. If I learn the lantern lore, and I dream of this temptation, I can advance my purpose. The need gnaws at me. The wound is healed, as much as it ever will be. A gate of pain and possibility remains. So there's now a knock scar. Now, it's worth noting that the way these scars work, so basically... So it says 3 scars of the same type will kill a mortal. So my understanding of that is that it's not that Saliba is on the verge of death. We can still send Saliba out to do the tasks that we want him to do. But if we wind up with a second winter or a second knock, then we're at the risk of losing them. So in theory, what you can do, my understanding of this mechanic is that if you are a particularly lucky or daring individual, you can actually have a follower with 4 of each aspect, and then 5 of their primary aspect. Actually, sorry, not even. I guess in that case they would go up to 9 in their aspect, unless of course it was something like the assassin or the key, in which case they would go up to 14 in their primary attribute. But clearly, 1, that is overkill, and 2, if you've got level 2 scars on so many of the other traits, the likelihood of you succumbing to your wounds before becoming sort of the ultimate fountain of knowledge. Like, sure, Harold Davidson might be able to get away with scars like that, but mere mortals? Nah, I don't think so. Anyways, we have some business with our bomb maker to attend to. Into the cupboard, please. This one must serve another purpose now. Into the cupboard they go. Okay, have I gotten a favor before? Yes, so previously when we went to the Mallory, we wound up with, Lantern from the Mallory and Fascination from the Chamber of Ways. So technically, I probably just want to take the favor. And unfortunately, doing so would deny me data on these other 2. So I'm going to go to the Mallory again, knowing that there may be an influence I need to get rid of. Okay, so it was Winter in that case. But it does seem like the Lantern was a constant for the Mallory. Last night in the Mantis, I visited the Mallory, from whose impulses and rotations one does not emerge unchanged. There are many radiances here, from the fires of the forge and her names and her instruments, but one radiance lingers behind them all like fading music. The last light of the sun in splendor, shed in the moments of his division. Here, where the forge is strongest. Now that I have awoken, I see that radiance still. Alright, I do not have... Well, I will in a few seconds, I suppose. Yeah, okay, we'll just wait on the dream slot then. So I don't want this thing to decay into Fascination, that's for sure. But otherwise, I will try and find a use for it. I've locked this one away safely. When their screaming and raving subsides, I will subdue them properly. So we will head straight out to the spider's door. Spider's door is always thirsty, always. The blood I have given leaks and threads and spills through the skin of the world, and the door drinks it, and a moment's satisfaction swells its opening until I can pass. I also thought I had some vitality kicking around, but apparently I don't. Okay, so we did successfully summon the Raw Prophet. This is good. It enters the world one limb at a time, questing like a serpent, cawing like a crow, throbbing like a vein. It will cuddle close against my leg if I let it, and afterwards I will have to dispose of my shoes. So, I've got an Exalting Heat, I've got a Blaze of Radiance, I've got a Fervor. Now the Fervor's got 2 minutes left on it. Mind you, I actually think that's going to wind up blowing up. Oof, yeah. I've got, actually have a little more trouble than I thought I was going to. Alright, I think I know my game plan, but I want to test something here first. So if I take my Sunset Right and Forge, and then I bring in the formula right. Okay. Forge of Days destroys and renews. It will, if I invoke it with the Grail to renew my failing flesh with forbidden magics, you are calling on a major degree of Forge, so the right will probably succeed. Increase your Forge to at least 15 to improve your chances further. Now, of course, I had it, but unfortunately, I had to let it decay a little bit. So we'll just bring a Forge Assistant. Laidlaw sounds like a good one. Grand. The Forge of Days destroys and renews. I will invoke it with the Grail to renew my failing flesh with forbidden magics. Now, so I'm going to start this. This is going to pick up a Decrepitude. What this will do, though, I believe this will generate a Notoriety and a Fascination. So I need to make sure that within 60 seconds, the Fascination isn't a threat anymore. Of course, with that in mind, in 43 seconds, the Restlessness is going to be taken care of. So I don't have too much to worry about there. Now, next step, the Raw Prophet. So in this case, I'm actually ready to start going on my expedition. So I'm going to take my 4-second long Raw Prophet. Not everything from the Mantis can speak, but everything can understand mortal speech, even once it has passed the White Door. So effectively, this is just kind of the last few moments of this raw prophet, and I'm actually going to take this one to go on an expedition with the Percussagant. This will buy their loyalty for now. So we can talk about the professional muscle for a bit. So we're going to head off to Hunter's Pits with the raw prophet and the Percussagant, the fresh ones. And then this will just deal with the evidence and then expire once the mission is done. So, Hunter's Pits. The Tearing tribes enlarged this cave system, digging shafts, preparing traps. It may have been a place of execution or a proving ground. In either case, it's sacred, and the tribes don't want us here. If we survive them, there's still one more terror in the cramped tunnels. So this sounds like Forge, Knock, and either Grail, Edge, or Moth. But as always, we bring the summons first, and then we'll fill it in with members of the cult. The trap labyrinths of the Tearing tribes. We'll have to scale the mountains and battle our way through the tribes. After that, no doubt, there will be something else. This is also going to require fun, so I do need to be kind of careful in terms of the order in which I do things. Let's see how the Ivory Book works now. Actually, now that I think of it, I probably don't want the Dread. Well, the Dread can work one way or the other. Members of the Ordo took an oath, the Ivory Chain, not to have commerce with the Hours. Followed literally, this would be almost impossible for an adept, so the manual contains numerous clarifications, exceptions, and processes of indulgence. I also forgot to read the other text. So, a manual of the Order of Limea, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Limea in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. This manual was compiled by one Curanai, who claims to have fled the tyranny of the Chrysanthemum throne to cross the world and join the Ordo. So sickness coming up. I don't think I have a way of generating health. Well, no, I don't think the Forge's Redemption would get me... I don't think that would get me a vitality. This is, of course, less frightening because we know we're getting a health coming back from the event here. I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they found no new clues. So, lucky me. Season of Despair coming up in 49 seconds, but as long as I don't have a Fascination generate, we're fine. I do, however, need to worry about this fervor. Okay, so as long as the fervor is dealt with, we are good for dread. Okay. When we had a secret history before, we've had iotic essence in both cases behind the Mallory. And then in the Chamber of Ways, it looks like we have both seen a knock and a secret histories. So in this case, I think there's a reasonable case for us to try the Chamber of Ways, just because in the end, there hasn't been anything too harmful that we've run into yet. Now that may change, but let's see. All right, that's actually kind of crummy for me to deal with, but it was Iotic Essence again for the Mallory. But yeah, the Moth is going to require a bit of handling. Well, I guess it turns into a Restlessness, so we can still work with that. Howling in the heart. Emotions contort our thoughts. One passion yields to the next like leaves in the wind's grip. I could also use it for summoning, but we'll see. Last night I came to the Concursum, the Mansus Heart, which has been called the Chamber of Choices, where every path one does not take is a stillborn future. In the sea sky blue of the chamber's light, I saw the sister and witch pass, their four hands weaving two paths to one. I woke with my passions, contorted to a knot. There's something I must do. There's always something I must do. So, we'll have something fresh for the dream soon enough, although I might want to just heal before I go too much further. Nothing. My words cease like sand in glass. Oh yes, I forgot. We're not betraying the professional muscle yet. So let's do that now. So I must serve another purpose now. Into the cupboard they go. And I have been renewed with flame, tempered with blood. My flesh is strong again, but the forge's radiance has dazzled my soul, and people will talk. Decrepitude has been transformed back to health, but you've gained fascination and notoriety. So there we go. Thank you for your help, Laidlaw. Now, under certain circumstances, I might want to try this to do this again, but I have other uses for my work verb right now. So we're going to do a sermon. In this case, I'm going to take passion for the simple reason that we might get lucky with a formula vigilant, and then I need to use this fervor to prevent getting a dread. Under some circumstances, it might make sense for me to use the dread to get rid of this fascination, but we know we have a season of despair coming up, and I can get rid of that fascination with a fleeting reminiscence from this season of vision. So there's no reason to try and get fancy with this. The congregation is already in a state of excitement. Any secret knowledge will almost certainly drive them to exaltation. The high passes. Savage peaks scar the sky. Winter aspect may preserve us from chill, and forge aspect may give us a path. If we have neither, our expedition will fail. So in addition, we've got the Watchers and the younger sister. But right now, I probably... Well, I mean, forge or winter, as it says, it doesn't really matter which. And there's really no advantage one way or the other to doubling up. So I'll do the winter as before. The Madrigard is strong in winter. Probably she will keep us from avalanches. Also, Kurenai describes the Order's burial rites, which include spells to ensure, in theory, that the souls of dead long are not given to the hour called the Ivory Dove, who memorializes and commemorates. Let me follow punctuation. Kurenai describes the Order's burial rites, which include spells to ensure, in theory, that souls of dead long are not given to the hours. The hour called the Ivory Dove, who memorializes and commemorates, is to be invoked in secret in these rites, for with that hour we have made an understanding. So, invocation of the Ivory Dove. This is a little bit like getting the Menascate invocation, again, because in this case you're able to level up. You're able to level this up to 10. And of course, the Sunset Rite is a particularly useful one for us. We've been using it before. Incidentally, now that we've got all of the lore on here, I've always thought there's a couple of things, there's a couple of details as far as the lore that I kind of like in terms of just the general, I guess, shape that or the descriptions of certain lore. So for instance, when we get to the level, I guess it's 2, 4, 6, I guess it would be level 8. Oh yeah, well it's 1 down from 10, so it would have to be level 8. Most of these get called invocations, right? The Menascate invocation, the Thakak invocation, the invocation of the Ivory Dove. But there are 2 exceptions. And well, I'm going to leave aside the secret histories because I know I get in trouble whenever I say this. There's some question as to whether or not it counts as a proper principle. But in this case here, the 2 exceptions would be the Colonel's names and the Moldy Warp admonitions. The other thing that's interesting is that there's also descriptions of formula. So in this case, we've got the formula concursit, the formula fissive, and the formula voluptuous. Well, you can probably tell which principles those are for. But of course, again, Moth and Edge are the outliers here. So we've got the Centipede Testament and the Lionsmith's names. Now, I actually want to try a couple things here, and that is to read the descriptions of the Moldy Warp admonitions and the Colonel's names to see if it refers to invocations. Moldy Warp keeps her crowns in the moss and her feet in the dirt, and the trees locked jaw tight. Moldy Warp has these warnings for you. And the Colonel's names: the Colonel has been many things in many ages. He is blind, he is deaf, he cannot be wounded, he cannot be denied. His names are cunning as only the very old can be. And any mention of formula? Centipede Testament. The Centipede Testament came out of the sands and went in under the roots. She found a new home, but now she can't go home. She creeps in everywhere else, keyholes and histories and the channels of birth and sight and hearing. Here's what she has to say. And the Lionsmith's name: the Lionsmith is young by the standards of the hours, but old by the standards of war. His names are recent recruits, and their recitation has a savage power. So again, I'm not 100% sure what to make of that, but I do think it's just an interesting observation that moth and edge are sort of the two unique ones when it comes to the description of certain, well, basically kind of what the description of that lore is. The account of Kanishk at the spider's door. Loch Cowley, Kanishk's victim and lover, wrote this account, perhaps posthumously. So we will translate it from Aramaic. We'll, of course, read the text itself in another broadcast, but we can at least get started. Lock the study door, the work begins. And I suppose the question is, what do I want to do? We are at the end of the time, but let's finish the talk. We can set ourselves up for the next turn, I suppose. I've locked this one away safely. When their screaming and raving subsides, I will subdue them properly. So I think probably the plan, we'll see whether it's always interesting because I know I'm likely not going to be able to record these until next weekend. I'm always interested to see if I follow through on the plans that I make at the end. But the way I'm feeling right now, it is better for me to actually visit the spider's door because that gives me time to finish this sermon. This sermon may wind up getting the Course of the Heart, which of course will give me a vitality and it will save me the 1 funds to, to heal the sickness that I wind up with. Again, I don't think we're going to be in a situation where, I mean, I could try and force the winter to be where it is, but let's just cool it on the lock scars for now. We're getting close to the end, but we can take our time. There's other expeditions to work with. If we don't wind up getting the the vitality, that's fine. There's other things that we can do. One thing I am kind of interested in is that we do have the awareness of appetite. Now that comes from the Raw Prophet, and I don't remember how much Grail you need, so it's possible that we can heal that other decrepitude. But as you know, we've talked a little bit about how we've now got a path towards getting all of the lock scars. And maybe when I finish this decrepitude, or maybe at another step, I'll mention exactly the whole path. I think most of you've kind of seen how I got that decrepitude at this point. Well, I know you've all seen it, but whether or not it's clear in memory is another question. But I will make sure before the end of this playthrough that I explain exactly the whole reasoning behind how you're able to get that narrow path to the lock scars. But I wanted to try and make it like really. I wanted to make it like really sort of mysterious so that basically you kind of had to know what to look for to get it. And then as we got deeper and deeper into the playthrough, make it a little bit more explicit what I was doing. So that way, if you're still playing with it and you want to give yourself a last chance to solve the puzzle on its own, you've had enough hints that once we get to the final level, it's kind of your decision as to whether or not you like to solve that on your own. But anyways, we're definitely getting close to the end, but the last 3... I think the last 3 are actually going to be some of the most difficult. I didn't go out of my way to make this challenging, but the order in which I've been gaining these lock scars is actually one of the more difficult paths that I can follow, and we'll definitely talk about it as it happens. So we still probably have some videos ahead of us. But I did promise I was gonna shut up and call it for the evening. So again, my feeling is we should wait and see whether or not the vitality comes up. We'll see whether or not I follow that logic in the next video. Thank you again for watching. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider dropping a subscription. And if you would like to be notified about the videos, there is the little bell that you can turn on. Usually the videos should be going online at 6:30 Eastern Time, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, and I also appreciate comments as well, not only because they help me get noticed, but they give me a chance to sort of interact with you and find out what's going well, what you're enjoying, and maybe some of your own thoughts about this game, because it's definitely a very unique one, and I'm delighted by the type of community that these videos attach. I can promise you that not every video on YouTube necessarily generates the positive comments that the Cultist Simulator ones do. So I never want to take that for granted, and I definitely thank you for doing that. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my weekend. I hope you enjoy your weekend as well. I will see you all Monday for the next episode.